Hello, Mr. Hardy here, and in this video I'd like to teach you about Act 1, Scene 7 of Macbeth by Shakespeare. As per usual, you need to be familiar with this scene, so you could have read it, listened to it, watched it, or have studied it previously in class. And as per usual, I'll start by summarising what happens in this scene, looking at the key characters, themes, and contextual knowledge, picking out a few key quotes and techniques you might want to memorise, and then I'll leave you with a couple of tasks you can complete at the end of the video. So, what happens in Act 1, Scene 7 of Macbeth? Well, we start with Macbeth having a soliloquy. If you remember from previous videos, a soliloquy is a type of monologue. That means one person is speaking, and it's a technique that Shakespeare uses so a character can reveal their thoughts and feelings to the audience. So at this point, Macbeth would be alone on stage, and he is speaking out to the audience his thoughts and feelings. And he's revealing that he's conflicted about the plan to commit regicide and kill King Duncan. He starts off by realising that in order to become king, he would have to kill King Duncan, and if he were to do it, he might as well do it quickly, it were done quickly, and get it over with. But the more he thinks about it, the more he thinks he's writing bloody instructions that will come back to plague himself, the inventor. What that means, if Macbeth, a thane, can go ahead and murder the king, when Macbeth murders Duncan and he becomes King of Scotland, what is stopping another thane from doing the exact same thing Macbeth has done, committing treason and killing King Macbeth in order to take the throne? So Macbeth thinks if he writes this bloody instruction in killing Duncan, it might inspire other thanes to do the same to him, and it might plague him later on. Furthermore, when he thinks of the act of regicide, he realises that King Duncan has arrived to his castle in double trust. He trusts him 2 times over. So first of all, Macbeth is King Duncan's kinsman. They're both Scottish, they have Scottish blood in them. Why would you betray your own kind? Furthermore, Macbeth is King Duncan's subject. He's loyal, or should be loyal, to King Duncan. Secondly, if you remember from a previous video, I spoke about warrior culture and the expectations of a host in this time in 11th century Scotland. And a host would be expected to lay down their life for their guest, whereas Macbeth is intending to do the opposite. He's tending to take the life of his guest, which would be considered a very serious offence and a breach of this warrior culture code. Furthermore, when Macbeth thinks of King Duncan and how he's ruled Scotland, he says that he has faculties so meek. That means King Duncan has a good personality, a good aura about him for being king. Macbeth says that his office is great. It's his great office. That means his government, his rule of Scotland is good. You know, the Scottish people enjoy being led by King Duncan. And he mentions that King Duncan has virtues. He has this moral compass. He knows right from wrong. He makes good decisions. So why on earth would you take the life of a ruler who's doing such a good job for your country and your people? And Macbeth admits at the end of his monologue that I have no spur to prick the side of my intent. A spur is the sharp metal circle you'll find on the back of a cowboy boot, and cowboys use it to kick into the flank, into the side of the horse, to make the horse run faster. So Macbeth is saying that there is no spur kicking him in the side, pricking him in the side to make him kill King Duncan. He's got 0 reasons to kill King Duncan, except for his ambition, which we know is a key theme. The 3 witches have prophesied that he'll be king hereafter. He's told his wife, Lady Macbeth, and she wants it, he wants it, and that is literally the only reason for doing such an evil, treasonous, sacrilegious act as regicide. So Macbeth has thought this through, he's thought this out loud so the audience can hear, and Lady Macbeth arrives on the scene. And Macbeth is quite decisive. He calls off the regicidal act. He tells his wife, we will proceed no further in this business. He puts his foot down. He becomes the man of the house and he says, no more, we're not going to kill the king. He's recently given me a promotion. Life is good. Why on earth should we kill King Duncan? And this is where Lady Macbeth's evilness and manipulative abilities really come to the fore. So if you remember in Act 1, Scene 5, she's asked spirits to fill her with direst cruelty, to stop up her ability to feel remorse, and to be able to pour her spirits, her ideas, into Macbeth's ears and manipulate him. And she does this two ways. First of all, she calls Macbeth a coward. She uses colours like green and pale. She directly addresses him, "Art thou afeard? Are you afraid?" She even uses the word coward, and she even uses the animal cat, like a scaredy cat. And this is almost ironic, because we know Macbeth isn't a coward. We know that from Act 1, Scene 2, when the captain reports on Macbeth in battle. Not only did he defeat the Norwegians once, he defeated them twice. Not only did he kill one traitor, he captured another. Macbeth is anything but a coward. Yet when it comes to his relationship with his wife seems to be able to control him. Maybe he doesn't wear the pants, have that authority in his relationship at home that he does on the battlefield. The second move Lady Macbeth pulls to get Macbeth to kill King Duncan is by questioning his masculinity. "When you durst do it, then you were a man. When you promised to kill King Duncan, then I saw you as a macho, powerful, masculine man." And she encourages him to be so much more than man. Become a man again. Do what you'd promised to do. She even tells him to screw your courage to the sticking place, which in a modern translation could be seen as like, man up. Come on, do it. Get it done. You're the man of the house. You're meant to achieve these things. Fulfill your potential. And if you remember again from previous videos, that there were very clear gender roles in both in Jacobean England and in 11th century Alba, Scotland. And Macbeth was supposed to be the dominant character and make decisions as the man, and Lady Macbeth was supposed to be subservient and listen to her husband. But clearly the gender roles have been reversed, and Lady Macbeth manipulates Macbeth. And quite cleverly, she uses those traditional gender stereotypes in order to manipulate Macbeth. You're a man, you're supposed to be violent, you're supposed to go and get things done. Now go and kill King Duncan, get it done. And Macbeth, after sort of standing up for himself and saying, "We will proceed no further in this business," by the end of the scene says, "I am settled. Fine, you've convinced me. Let's go kill the king in order to become king and queen ourselves." So we have two characters in this scene. We start off with Macbeth, and he comes across as clearly conflicted in his soliloquy. He knows in order to become king, he needs to kill King Duncan, but his moral compass refuses to allow him to do that. So here we have two themes battling it out within Macbeth. The theme of ambition, he wants to become King of Scotland and fulfill that third prophecy, and his morality, his moral compass, his sense of right and wrong. They're in conflict, and they've sort of reached a stalemate. Neither one is beating the other. Maybe you could even argue that his morality wins when he tells his wife that we will proceed no further in this business. But then Lady Macbeth enters the scene, and she comes across as very manipulative. Bear in mind, we shouldn't be seeing her as a subservient, gentle lady. We should be seeing her as a lady who has been filled with direst cruelty and has no more remorse, and is manipulative. And in my head, I see an image of Lady Macbeth as like a puppeteer with strings that are attached to Macbeth, who is the puppet. And through her words, she can almost make Macbeth think and move and commit regicide and do what she wants. This is the image I have in my head, particularly when I read this scene. And Lady Macbeth is very clever, no doubt about it. She uses those traditional gender roles, which she has broken. She's no longer a passive wife. She is now a dominant masculine role. But she uses that dominant masculinity against Macbeth to say, "Come on now, be a man, get it done. You promised to kill King Duncan, now go and do it." So again, we have this idea of ambition versus morality, but Lady Macbeth is no longer moral. When she asked the spirits to fill her with direst cruelty and stop up the passage of remorse, she lost all sense of morality. So ambition clearly wins for her, and she's able to get Macbeth to commit regicide. So the key themes we encounter in scene 7 is ambition. Both Lady Macbeth and Macbeth are ambitious. However, Macbeth doesn't want to act on his ambition due to his morality. However, Lady Macbeth, with her lack of morality at this stage, is willing to act upon her ambition and also convinces Macbeth to act as well. I've been using this word morality as a key theme. It's this idea of right versus wrong, doing good versus doing bad. This links all the way back to the witches in Act 1 with fair is foul and foul is fair, good is bad and bad is good. And a morality play is actually a genre. It's a type of play, and it's a play that's meant to teach the audience a lesson. So here, I think Shakespeare is trying to teach his Jacobean audience the lesson of do not commit regicide, do not murder kings, otherwise bad consequences await you. And we'll see those bad consequences as the rest of the play unfolds. Now, this lesson that Shakespeare is teaching the audience would greatly please King James I, who was the reigning monarch at the time, because if you remember in a previous video, I explained that the gunpowder plot had recently happened, an attempt on King James' life. So he was quite paranoid and worried. So Shakespeare telling the British public, do not kill the king or God will punish you, that would please King James immensely. And in return, he would, befriend and favour Shakespeare and fund future productions. Finally, we've got that theme of gender roles, and Lady Macbeth is no longer feminine. She's much more masculine and powerful because of the spirits inside her, and she uses that power to manipulate Macbeth quite cleverly with those masculine gender stereotypes at the time of being violent and getting the job done and taking what you want in society. So, what key contextual knowledge do you need to fully appreciate Act 1, Scene 7? Well, let's explore the understanding and the roles of women, both in the Jacobean time, so in 17th century England and in 11th century Scotland. The expectations of women would have been similar. And this was that women were supposed to be delicate creatures. They were supposed to be nurturing to their offspring, and they were supposed to be subservient to their husbands. You could see the word servant in subservient. They have to be like servants to their husbands. However, Lady Macbeth doesn't fill any of those three criteria. Lady Macbeth plots regicide to murder King Duncan. That's not exactly delicate. She's not gentle. She's plotting a gory, bloody, murderous act. Not very feminine at all. Lady Macbeth also says that she would murder her own baby, which isn't very nurturing. Mothers are supposed to look after their children, but she says she'll murder her own child if she had promised Macbeth that she would. In a very weird way, I find this almost like a confession of Lady Macbeth's love for Macbeth. She said, if I had promised you that I would murder my own baby, then whilst it was smiling in my face and feeding on my breast milk, I would pluck my nipple from its boneless gums and dash my baby's brains out if I had sworn that I would do this for you. So Lady Macbeth saying she'd murder her own child for Macbeth if she had promised. So surely Macbeth can murder some old King Duncan if he had already promised Lady Macbeth to do it. And I think in a weird way, this is Lady Macbeth saying, Macbeth, I love you so much, I would murder my own child. Surely you love me enough to murder an old, irrelevant King Duncan. But anyway, the point is Lady Macbeth is not particularly nurturing, as would have been the expectation of her. Furthermore, Lady Macbeth manipulates her husband. Her husband, Macbeth, puts his foot down. He says, we will proceed no further. I don't want to kill the king. And as a good woman in the Jacobean era and in the Albert era in Scotland, she should have supported her husband and said, okay, we're not going to murder King Duncan. I accept your decision. But instead, she manipulates her husband through calling him a coward and through questioning his masculinity into making him commit regicide. So she's not exactly subservient. She doesn't fulfill these three criteria, these three expectations of a woman. Now, it sounds like I'm putting a lot of blame on Lady Macbeth. I think I should put some of the blame on Macbeth as well, because his gender roles should state that he should be the opposite. Instead of delicate, he should be quite commanding. So when he says, we will proceed no further in this business, we won't murder King Duncan, when he puts his foot down, he really should stick by his guns and not be manipulated back by Lady Macbeth. Furthermore, If, as the man in the house fulfilling the male role, he instead of subservient, he should be dominant. He shouldn't be bullied out of his decision by his wife, and yet he is. So whilst I feel Lady Macbeth definitely has subverted her gender role, and has become very manipulative and coerces Macbeth into murdering King Duncan, I think Macbeth really should do a better job of standing up as the traditional male role in the Jacobean era and in Alba, Scotland, and actually not going ahead with the regicide. Okay, some key quotes. In Macbeth's soliloquy at the opening of the scene, he says, "If it were done, when it is done, then it were well, it were done quickly." That means if I were to kill King Duncan, I better get it done quickly. But then he reflects and he says, "Bloody instructions which being taught return to plague the inventor." This quote means, if I kill King Duncan, what's to stop another Thane from killing me when I become King of Scotland? Macbeth says he's here in double trust. I am his kinsman, I am his host. This is the idea that Duncan trusts Macbeth twice over, and if Macbeth murders King Duncan, he breaks not only the trust of the kinsman, both of them being Scottish, but also the trust of the host, which was very important in that warrior culture. In the next quote, Macbeth is complimenting King Duncan's ruling ability. His faculties are meek, he has a good personality, his great office, he's very good at ruling, his government is good, his virtues, his morality. Why would you kill someone who is doing such great work for your country? And finally, I have no spur to prick the side of my intent, but only vaulting ambition. This is a great quote if you are going to talk about the theme of ambition in a GCSE answer. When Lady Macbeth enters the scene, Macbeth says, "We will proceed no further in this business." He's quite decisive, he's quite masculine at this point. But then Lady Macbeth does all her impressive manipulation afterwards. She calls Macbeth a coward, and she does this through colour connotations, green and pale. She then says, "Art thou afraid?" Art means are, thou is you, afeard is afraid, are you afraid? She even drops the C word on him, coward. Macbeth is anything but a coward, but Lady Macbeth pulls the coward card, and it really seems to provoke a response in Macbeth. And she finally says, "The poor cat in the adage." An adage is like a proverb or a phrase. So there's a famous sort of phrase or story about a cat who wants to go into a pond to kill a fish and eat a fish. But the cat is scared of the water. So it wants the fish, but it's too scared to do the action of getting wet to eat the fish. This is a bit like Macbeth. Macbeth is the cat. Becoming King of Scotland and killing King Duncan is the fish. And the getting wet is the act of killing King Duncan. And Macbeth is too scared to get his paws wet. Lady Macbeth effectively calls him a scaredy cat. And as if that wasn't enough, Lady Macbeth takes it one step further by questioning Macbeth's masculinity. She says, "When you durst do it, then you were a man. That means in the past, when you promised to kill King Duncan, I saw you as a real man, and I loved you for it." So she challenges him. She says, "Be so much more the man. Become the man again. Do it again, and I will love you, and I will see you as a great man." And she gives him this final push of encouragement. "Screw your courage to the sticking place," which I would, in a modern context, translate as, "Come on, man up, get it done. You're the man of the house. You're supposed to do these things. Be a man, get it done." And this seems to have a great effect on Macbeth. Not only that, this kind of bizarre confession of love. "I have given suck," that means I've breastfed, "and I know how tender it is to love the babe that milks me, to have my own child," that sort of special storge love between a mother and a daughter or son, very powerful type of love. "I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from its boneless gums and dashed the brains out." Oh, that's such a violent verb, dashed. "Had I so sworn, as you have done to this." So if I had sworn to you, my dear husband Macbeth, that I would kill my own baby for you, I would do it. That's how much I love you. So surely, Macbeth, if you love me, you could kill King Duncan for me. This is very unfeminine. Think about those expectations of women in the Jacobean audience in England and in 11th century Scotland of being sort of subservient and nurturing. This imagery is incredibly violent and just the opposite of what you would expect a woman to be in those times. And all of this manipulation works, and finally at the end of the scene, Macbeth says, "I am settled. I will kill King Duncan as we had originally planned." So, what can you do to solidify your knowledge of Act 1, Scene 7? Make some notes from this video on a physical copy of the play, highlight the quotes, identify some techniques, and then have a go at answering this question. How does Lady Macbeth manipulate Macbeth into committing regicide in Act 1, Scene 7 of Macbeth? Personally, I'd take a couple of paragraphs to do this, maybe even 3. In one paragraph, I would look at when Lady Macbeth calls Macbeth a coward and use some of those quotes like "green and pale, art thou afeard, live a coward," the cat in the adage. I might do a second analytical paragraph where I explore how Lady Macbeth questions Macbeth's masculinity and uses that to manipulate him into committing regicide. So quotes such as, "When you durst do it, then you were a man. Be so much more the man. Screw your courage to the sticking place." And if you have time, maybe do a third paragraph about that bizarre kind of confession of love. "If I had told you that I would kill my baby, I would pluck my nipple from its boneless gums and dash the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this," and explore how that sort of manipulates Macbeth and guilt trips him into having to kill King Duncan. Okay, so if you like this video, if this helped you with your understanding of Macbeth, please give it a like. Please also subscribe to my Mr. Hardy YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any future videos. And please leave a comment if you think there's anything I've forgotten or anything you'd like to add. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you on the next one.